So, as most of you know, under this box here, we have a 275-gallon IBC tank that is food grade. And we fill this regularly with the water from our well. Now, when I say regularly means whenever the sun is up, I try to fill it back up. This past year has been pretty terrible. It's used to be able to fill it up every day, and now maybe two or three times a week at the most. Sometimes we've went a couple of weeks without filling it. Now, Carolyn and I don't use a lot of water. I would say our biggest consumption of water is laundry. So this is our well, and we can run this off solar and take a hose from the well through a couple filters, house filters, and into the IBC tank. We fill it up and then let the batteries recharge on the battery bank from the solar panels. Now, a lot of people have asked, why don't we just use the well off solar panels instead of having the IBC tank as an intermittent step? Well, first of all, there's two reasons. First of all, a well would have a pressurized tank, 50, 60 gallons, 30 gallons. I'm not sure how big it is, but it's a pressurized tank. So you fill that tank, and then that tank would go into your house, and then it refills. The problem is for the freezing aspect of it. Of course, you put it in the house, but we live in a tiny house. There wouldn't be any room for it. So it would have to go next to the well. The second problem with that setup is if we wanted to run water at nighttime, we don't have enough electricity to do it. We'd have to have a huge battery bank to take a shower at night. So when we have an IBC tank like this, we can use alternative pumping methods. It takes a lot of electricity to pump water 100 feet up. And of course, you know, flow rates and trying to find a pump that small that all you need to do is take a shower with. So we chose to use a different type of pump. Now this pump is brand new. I just bought it. I always have a backup pump. So this last freeze, I was concerned that the pump would break in the freeze. That happened a couple times, but usually they survive the freeze for some reason. And but the backup I have is up in the attic, and I didn't feel like going up in the attic, so I went ahead and bought another one. Not because I'm spoiled or anything, just because they're not that expensive. I think this is $24. And I call this an RV pump. It's not really an RV pump. It's more of a pump for your lawnmower. Like if you wanted to put a tank on your lawnmower, you could use this. Just different applications. But I would suppose you could use this for an RV pump. So it's 12 volts, which is perfect. Now, my battery system's way down there. That's 100 feet. So if I was to run electric from down there to up here to the pump, I would have to have a pretty thick piece of wire, even though this is like, I think this is 6 amps. Was the last time I looked at 5 amps right there, 5 amps. So you would have to have a significantly large piece of wire, and there's a lot of wire to run. You'd have to have 2 strands, so it would be kind of expensive. So what we did, since AC electricity, you don't need quite as thick wire for the same amount of amperage because it's voltage. I'm not going to get into all that. We bought a lawnmower battery over here, and it's in the house. And then we charged the lawnmower battery with a trickle charger. You can buy them online. I mean, it's like milliamps of charge. And so that plugs into the wall. So that takes 12 volts. We run it up here, 12 volts, you know, with 1 milliamp. So we're not running that many amps up here. And that charges that little lawnmower battery 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We never unplug it. And so when we use water, like a lot of water, it takes maybe a couple days to recharge that battery. But with the little trickle charger, just constantly charging, you know, we don't use water at night or something when we're asleep, so it has time to catch up, and it has worked really well. So this pump you can use for all kinds of applications, and like I said, it's $24. And you got your water flow, so this is inlet and this is outlet. Now, hey, I want to interrupt this video real quick to ask you to get to the end of this video, click the up next box. It'll take you to my other channel where we're working on a lawnmower. Appreciate it if you could subscribe and watch the video. We have been having a problem with our current pump. We had a freeze, and in that freeze, our inlet pipe was restricted. It got some ice in there and was restricted for several days until it finally thawed out. So I thought the pump was bad. That's why I bought this. But I'm not going to return it because it's always good to have backup pumps. So you have the inlet and then you have the outlet. Now we run a garden hose on the outlet. I'll explain that in a minute. The inlet runs right into the IBC tank. Now, the disadvantage to this pump is it does not draw a vacuum. It does not suck water in. It has to gravity feed into it. So your water has to be higher than this pump. It's one of the reasons I don't bury the tank. A lot of people say you just bury the tank. Well, when you got to do maintenance on these pumps, you would have to have the pump lower, so I'd have to unbury the tank every time you need to work on the pump. I mean, that's argumentative. You can do whatever you want. Now, if you can keep the hose primed, full of water, the inlet, you can, it will suck, but it won't draw a vacuum if there's no prime in it. So you got to, you know, you'd have your hose, you'd have to drip water until it was full and then dunk it back in the water. And the reason I know this is we used this exact pump when we were traveling as nomads. And originally I rigged this thing up so the hose would just fall right into the bucket. This is when we were in a pop-up camper. And I would have to fill up the hose every time we changed out the bucket. What we ended up doing after the pop-up camper burned down was I had a bucket. So my bucket was actually my tank, like the IBC tank is now. So I drilled a hole in the bottom of the bucket and ran a hose into that hole, filled up the bucket, and the water, of course, would just, I didn't have to worry about that, you know, being higher and lower and all that and trying to prime the hose each time. Then we run a hose off of here. These are just little protective caps. And you can see there's water in it because they've tested it. I think you can see water in there. There is water in it. But they test each one of these pumps, which I found amazing. Then you go to your local hardware store, and this is the easiest thing to do. And you tell them, I need a setup where I can run this into a garden hose. And, you know, the guy behind the counter will jump out and he'll start piecing everything together until it goes into a garden hose. And so we actually have well, not a garden hose, an RV hose, which is safe for consumption of water. So the RV hose, which is the same size as a garden hose, so he rigged it up. So it has a plastic tube here and then a little connection and right into a garden hose. And it's worked fantastic. Now this thing is 1.2 gallons per minute right here. That's what it says. Show you I'm not trying to sell this specific one, but it's like the cheapest one on the internet. So 12 volts, 5 amps. Cutoff pressure. Oh, that's a good point. I should bring that up. So you can cut off the pressure up to 80 psi, which is massive. So you really got to be able to regulate that. So you can, this little screw right here in the center, you would loosen that up. You don't want it at 80 psi or even 50. You want it more like I think it's 30 psi for our water tank. I'm sorry, our water heater. In order for our water heater to have to kick on, it has to be, I think, 30 psi. Don't quote me on that. But what I do is I just adjust it until the water heater won't kick on, and then I tighten it up a little bit, and then when the water heater kicks on, I say that's good. That way I'm not stretching out my garden hoses. The first one I got, or the RV hoses, the first one that we used, I stretched out all the hoses and they started leaking and it was hard to seal up. And these, now they also give you some cheap hose clamps. These don't work. There's not, you can't tighten them tight enough, they'll strip out. So go to the hardware store and get good solid metal ones, that, you know, the most expensive ones. And I replace them every time I change this. I replace them. So you adjust it. Now, another thing a lot of people are concerned about is polarity. They used to not have this wired up red and black. Now it's red and black. It's easy to do. But you can switch these out. It doesn't matter which one it goes on. You can have this on positive. You can have the black one on positive and the red one on negative. It doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is it doesn't matter which way the motor spins. And that's all you're doing is if you switch polarities, you're just spinning the motor the other way. These are lift pumps right here on both sides. So you can lift these pumps, and it does this. So it doesn't matter which way the pump spins, as long as it's, you know, because it will still lift those pumps. Now, like I said, you can use this for a variety of uses, and my imagination just isn't big enough. The thing I'd always thought of, if I had some sort of garden, I would make a tank and put it in my garden wagon for my lawnmower, and you can hook this up to your lawnmower battery and you could spray water. Now, the nice thing about this is it has a, like I said, a cutoff pressure. What happens is when you shut the water off, there is a pressure switch right here. I mean, you can see the wiring goes into this portion right here. There's a switch there. I've replaced those before because sometimes these go out. So this is a pressure switch I bought, and it's not an exact match. In order for it to fit, I had to bend one of these. I don't remember which one. I had to bend it, and so I was able to save it. So what happens is, as this pump builds up pressure, so you shut off the hose, and the hose starts to expand, and you'll hear the motor grinding down, because as it's grinding down, it's pushing a switch down, and it will shut off the pump. So it's a variable pressure, is what I'm trying to say. When our water heater, you can adjust the flow of the water coming out. So as you turn the water pressure down, this thing slows down. You can hear the motor go as it slows down. And then when you shut it off at the water heater, this will just shut off. It's a pretty neat design, pretty easy to work on. And then the other thing is, these pumps only last about a year now. I don't know how true that is. The one I got on there now is but at least a year and a half old. But what you do is you take all these screws out, and then you just swap them out. You put the bottom on the top and the top on the bottom, and that's supposed to give you another year. But the thing is for 24 bucks, and I just consider this a maintenance item. It's a lot cheaper than, you know, having to run that well all the time, trying to figure out how to keep it warm, not freeze. But if you were to use this on a lawnmower, same thing would apply. You put your tank inside the wagon. You put your pump on the bottom side of the tank somewhere, fill your tank up, and then you just run this over to your battery, and with a shutoff on your hose. It would be a very simple design. Now, you could actually have a plug-in for your battery, so you could just plug it in, unplug it. This is a very flexible pump. Now, once you're done with the pump, let's say the pump is bad, the motor's still good, you can literally convert this into a windmill. This will produce electric as it spins. I proved this in a video a while back. I took the motor out, I put it on a drill, took these two wires. As I spun the drill, I put it on a tester, and it lit up the tester. So for 5 amps, 12 volts, 5 amps, you could hook this up to your solar panel, because 12 volts, you want about 20 volts for your charging system, your charge controller on your electric system, your DC electric system. So you get one solar panel that would produce all the volts you needed. You could hook up, you know, 5 or 6 or 10 of these little motors after the pump burns out, and you can have a windmill. Or you could even hook this up into a string. So you could get, as long as you could get this to spin out at 5 amps, then you would be making 5 amps. So, I mean, it's not like something you would just throw away. You could literally make this into something else. It's not hard at all. Just take the motor out and get it to spin. If you can get it to spin, it's going to produce electricity. But like I said, you would have to put it up against a solar panel, you know, in line with a solar panel, so you could get enough volts. This wouldn't have enough volts. Now, I've been asked this question many times about the pump. That's why I finally brought it out. Usually when I'm up in the attic and I grab that pump, I'm replacing it, and I've made videos on how to replace it, but I've never really explained the pump itself. It's a very simplistic design, very cheap, and even if you're not interested in pumping something, you may want to get one of these just so you can play with it. The neat thing is you can run this dry. So if you just want to play with it and turn it on, you could. It wouldn't hurt it at all. As a matter of fact, let's just go do that real quick. Okay, so we're at the lawnmower, the beast as we call it, and we'll just show you that you can just hook it up this easy. Now, you may be able to hear that. And if you got the wiring reversed, although I can't prove it to you because I don't have any water hooked up to it, still runs. You may see that it kicked this direction. When we turn it the other way, it should kick the other direction. It did. So it's just that simple. You can hook this up to your truck, your car. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video on my other channel where I'm working on a lawnmower. So hope I can inspire you to come up with your own solutions so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.